Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Two Spot Monkeys Live. It has been a minute, been a couple of weeks. Sorry about that. Life gets in the way sometimes, and just doesn't allow time sometimes for Tom and I to get together. We knew that when we started this, which is why we've never made promises that catch a new episode every Thursday or every Tuesday or every whatever. But we try to get to you every week, but sometimes it just doesn't happen, and sometimes those weeks pile up a little bit. So it's been a couple of weeks. But Tom, how the heck you doing, man?
I'm better than I was 2 weeks ago when we had to quickly pivot from recording. So I apologize greatly for that. I felt like death run over 7 times. That was not a good day for me. Thankfully, I bounced back in about 24 hours. Lots of fluids and a little bit of rest. And then yeah, just life. I mean, it is a fall shouldn't be this busy when you're still in the middle of a pandemic, but it actually kind of is between just juggling the hats that you wear with life and work and your relationships with family and friends. Woo! Here we are.
Yeah, we tried to find a time last week, and we found like an hour and a half that totally wasn't really workable for either one of us. It was like we could try to squeeze it in there, but like your kids were coming home from school at that hour, and I had a meeting right after it, I think. And yeah, just hey, it happens.
Well, and if our previous episodes have shown our listeners and or watchers or both anything, it's that unfortunately we don't have the gift of attempting to go short. So as opposed to not like trying to cram, so much in and not be thoughtful about what we're speaking about, we just decided it was better to wait until now.
That's right. And as much as you might think, oh my goodness, they haven't recorded in 3 weeks, it's going to be a 6 hour show today. And we have joked about that. It won't be. We promise we'll keep it right about an hour because, there is life yet for us this morning, too. We're recording early morning on Thursday, or early morning for me, not quite as early for Tom. Um, Different time zones be damned. But we promise we won't keep you for a full day of meetings here on Two Spot Monkeys. But it's been little bit, like I said, since we last talked. So the last time we talked was actually our preview for Clash of the Champions, if you believe that. There have been like 17 pay-per-views. And no, there have been 2 pay-per-views since then. So we figured we'd update kind of our head-to-head standings. We did make picks for TakeOver. We'll talk about that in just a moment as well. But Clash of the Champions was, well, more of the same. Tom went, okay, so there are 7 matches that we ended up counting for our head-to-head. There were 9 scheduled matches, but of course, WWE had to scratch a couple of matches. The story, as everybody except WWE has it, is they had a outbreak of COVID, so certain folks were unable to work, which makes sense. And both the let's see, it was the Bayley and Nikki Cross match, and also the women's tag title match got scratched from that show. Bayley ended up working Asuka, but we didn't pick that match, so because we didn't know it was happening until literally we saw it happen on the show. Um, so 7 matches actually got scored for us. Tom went 6-1. I went 5-2. So that just continued to dig a hole for me in this competition. Any thoughts back from Clash of Champions, Tom? I realize you might have to look back at the card a little bit to remind ourselves.
Yeah, I didn't even watch the show, to be honest with you. Again, life just, it didn't happen. I thought I was going to watch it that Sunday. I think I started to give my energy to football. I think something with football caught my attention that day, and or like the weekend catching up on stuff in the house and getting the kids ready to go back to school the next day. Um, it's weird when you have kids how your priorities of watching pay-per-views don't match what they did 20 years ago, 10 years ago. So no, I don't even think I watched anything. I wanted to go back and watch the IC title ladder match and the main event of that show because I had read things about them that were positive. But again, with what I've been trying to watch and a lot of my energy going to New Japan recently, I just didn't carve out the time to go back and watch. I was pleased I was right about Sami Zayn. I think I was right about Sami Zayn.
You were.
So I was happy. I was happy there, and I think that was the right move. But yeah, when I think about the results or when I reflect back on that, and nothing. Again, I would have to look back to kind of really refresh my thought, but I don't think I was really surprised.
Yeah, the Sammy pick was a great pick by you. That was a fun match, and a creative finish. For him to handcuff Jeff Hardy's ear to a ladder, like I don't believe I just said that sentence. He handcuffed Jeff Hardy's ear, and not in a bad way. Like sometimes I say that on this show, and it's because things like eye for an eye match or whatever, and I can't believe I'm saying it because it's so stupid. Um, but it was almost one of those things as I saw it happen. First of all, it takes a little bit in wrestling for me to really go, because I've seen a lot of wrestling, but I did, and I thought, God, why has nobody ever done that before? Like Jeff Hardy's got this huge gauge in his ear. It kind of made sense. Whoever came up with that idea, kudos to them, whether it was the guys themselves or the agent or whoever. And the minute he did it, I went, son of a Tom's going to be right on this. That was my first thought was, crap.
it makes my skin like tingle a little bit when I hear you say that. It's not like totally gross, but like I think of like Triple H Batista at WrestleMania when he was pulling out his nose piercing. Again, it's just like, oh, like that's your body, right?
And my thought was, man, if something goes wrong here and that ladder pulls more than anybody expects, we're gonna see Jeff Hardy's ear explode on live TV. So yeah, it was like I said, it takes a little bit in wrestling for me to really cringe, and usually if it does, it's something that gets kind of botched. Somebody gets dropped on their head or something like that where you're like, oh, that did not go the way. And there was a spot before the handcuffing where I think Sammy, it might have been Styles, but I think it was Sammy, tipped a ladder that Jeff Hardy was laying on, and it kind of dumped over the top rope awkwardly and smacked Hardy on the way down. It was just kind of like, I don't think that went the way anybody thought, or it's Jeff Hardy, so maybe it did. Yeah. So that's one. I mean, 10 years from now, if you have time, that one would be worth going back and seeing. We were both wrong on that darn ambulance match. They are not going to get that belt off Drew. Which I'm fine with because I like Drew McIntyre. And I say that and now watch probably at Hell in a Cell. They'll probably put it on Orton. Anyway, since they're going that direction. So, well, we shall see. But then we move over to TakeOver. We thought we'd just talk a little bit about TakeOver and why we made picks that we did. For TakeOver, hallelujah. There were 5 matches, and I went 4-1, and Tom went 3-2. So I have finally picked up, albeit a very little bit of ground, or maybe really kept it even, I guess, after the last 2 pay-per-views to where we were before that, as far as number of matches behind. So our current total, before we talk about TakeOver, Tom is 25-7, which is just phenomenal. And I am 21-11, so a 4-match lead still for Tom. At this point, we expect again, we hope to make picks next week sometime for Hell in a Cell. We also hope to have picks for Full Gear, Survivor Series, TakeOver 32, which is coming up in December, we think, from what has been reported. And TLC should happen in December, we think, as well. Unless some other shows pop that we don't know about yet, that probably will wrap this season of the head-to-heads for us. So looking back at TakeOver, and I think almost what was going to have to happen when we start making picks the rest of the year is you just go first and I pick the other person. Which will probably be a terrible strategy because a lot of times we're going to agree because it's pretty obvious what's coming. Let's see. Looking back at TakeOver, we'll just run over results really quick. Finn Balor defended his title in a brutal match with Kyle O'Reilly. Damian Priest defended his title against Gargano and won. Io Shirai, which we both missed that match, defeated Candice LeRae. Kushida beat the Velveteen Dream. And then the match that got me my win, Santos Escobar over Isaiah Swerve Scott for the Cruiserweight title. Do we want to go pick by pick, Tom, or talk general? What do you want to do here? We didn't really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess let's start just at where we differed. Obviously, that Cruiserweight title match. Man, we could say the same thing here, or I could say the same thing here in terms of my reasoning as to why I thought that the ambulance match was the time for Randy Orton to win the title. Like I thought, like all of the pieces fit for Swerve Scott to win, and it appeared like that was the direction they were going. And I was like, sweet, like this is, and then it didn't happen. And that was just a super match. The whole card was just really top notch from bell to bell, beginning to end. And that main event, in my opinion, top 5 match of the year across the globe, without a doubt. And the fallout from that match with the injuries, and I can't believe. And I'm not current on NXT. I haven't watched the TV following that show or the week after. So I'm aware that the injuries of Finn Balor and the surgery he had to go through, and the X-ray of his jaw and the tooth. Yikes! I don't like going to the dentist, let alone like thinking about having a broken jaw and having to have a tooth and a jaw fixed. So I'm getting off obviously from the cruiserweight title, so I apologize. But yeah, no, like I thought it was a time for Swerve Scott to have the ball handed off to him or the belt given to him, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, I think they're doing an incredible job building Santos Escobar. I hope that someday down the road he can get out of the cruiserweight division, because I think that guy could be money. I hate to say on the main roster. I know they try to say NXT is main roster, but when you don't include it in your draft, it's not main roster. Sorry, they can say it all they want, but they don't show it. But that's a different story for another conversation. But I think they're doing a great job with Escobar. I have enjoyed that Mendoza and Wilde so far have not been just the lackeys who always screw everything up and lose all the time, which is kind of the faction setup that WWE often has, is they have one person who looks really strong and everybody else is an idiot. And so I'm glad they've stayed away from that with Legado del Fantasma. I do wish they'd give them a few more wins that matter, but that's me. Of course, I had them winning the tag titles a couple of weeks back, a month ago or so, and obviously didn't happen. Freaking Breezango, but anyways, we don't have to go down that road again. Excuse me, frog in my throat. So yeah, I obviously was very happy, and I thought it was interesting. So Tom and I, we've talked about before. We're in a fantasy wrestling league where we also make picks for pay-per-views, and we make the same picks there that we do here on the show. But there we use confidence points as well, which is kind of a tiebreaker for folks in the league, so that we know who gets points for the league out of it. And that one match that we differed on, I did think it was just interesting to note. I had a 4 on Santos Escobar, so I was pretty solid, believing Escobar was going to win. You had a 1 on Swerve out of the 5, so you were at least as unsure as any match on that card. This was one that I can say, and you probably felt this way too, Tom. I think from putting 1 on Swerve. Sometimes with the confidence points, and I know I'm getting into fantasy wrestling league a little bit, but I think it speaks to our picks here. Sometimes with our confidence points, the first 3 or 4 matches are very easy for me to put the top numbers on, because it's very obvious that Roman Reigns is not going to lose to Jey Uso or whatever. I didn't have that on this card. I had to really think about, what do I want to put my 5, my 4, my 3, my 2, and my 1 on, because this whole card, I could have made arguments either direction. I felt like. Did you feel that the same way?
For sure, yeah. And I think in that mind space, or that headspace, that would have been a really interesting conversation. So I'm bummed we didn't have the chance to preview that, because I think we could have had some good back and forth banter about that. And again, I think with WWE, sometimes you just never know. Like you would think that there's a logic, and I'm sure there is a logic, at least for the writers and the bookers.
You're giving them more credit than I will, but okay.
I mean, you have to think that they have a plan, right? Whether we actually see it or we have the patience to watch it play out or not. That being said, I think there are sometimes too where they do deserve to be raked over the coals for some of the decisions they make. But yeah, that show, I think you easily, to your point, could have gone and made arguments. I think Damian Priest, Johnny Gargano, right? Like it seemed to be like that they were looking to, at least in the minds of fans or in the eyes of fans, make us think that Gargano and Candice were going to be, the power couple, double champions. So if you would have picked Gargano and Candice both to win that night, there was a logical explanation for that. Now I understand why they did what they did, and I'm glad they did what they did. Again, like I said before here, when we've talked, I want more out of Io Shirai. Like, even though I think it would have made sense for Candice to be the one to dethrone her, maybe that still happens down the road. That the fact that it didn't happen then, I'm okay with.
Yeah, and I have to admit, when Gargano and Candice both lost, my first thought was they're going to Raw or SmackDown. And I know you're still kind of catching up on some things, but it doesn't appear that's the case. I'll just say that without spoiling anything for you. I was sure that's what it meant, because I thought otherwise, why don't you at least put one of the belts? Because Johnny Gargano, I guess Candice doesn't use Gargano in wrestling.
Candice Gargano.
Candice Gargano, which may be her real name now. I don't know. I don't even know Candice LeRae is her real name, to be honest. I don't pay attention to that too much. But Johnny Gargano, either him having a title and Candice not, or Candice having a title and him not, how that would drive his character crazy, I think would have been a fun story to tell, and maybe they'll get there and tell that story yet. Like you said, maybe Candice still wins that title down the road, or maybe Johnny wins the title down the road. But I almost think they'd have to be careful how they tell that story too, though, unless the intent was to break the two apart eventually, which I don't think they should be doing anytime soon, because they're such a good act together. So they would have to be careful with that. But I think that would be fun. So I kind of thought we both had Candice winning that title, and we both had Damian Priest retaining his title in our picks. So we kind of had that same thought of, maybe there'll be one but not the other who will win. But WWE went a different way, and so it'll be interesting to see now how that plays out. I have seen NXT from last week. I've not seen last night's show because, as we said, it's early Thursday morning. And I have a Wednesday night obligation. So maybe sometime today while I'm working from home, I might be able to have it on and catch up a little bit. More than likely, it's usually tomorrow or Saturday before I catch NXT. So
thoughts on the Capitol Wrestling Center?
Loved it.
Okay. I like the presentation. I'm not a fan of the LED boards with the people. Like I think that should be Thunderdome. I felt and still feel, and maybe it'll grow on me, but for now, I felt like that should have been Thunderdome specific. I think I would have preferred that NXT parrot ROH and do what they did for their setup. I would prefer larger screens with graphics versus people, because they actually had real fans. Like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that NXT show was the first show that actually had real, like, non-talent in the audience. Like, and again, it was much reduced, which it should be, again, with social distancing and still trying to put a lid on this virus from spreading. But outside of like the cage or like beyond the cage, just give me fans and just give me different lighting. I don't know. So, but you liked it, so I'd like to know more.
Yeah, I did, and I think I understand what you're saying on the video boards. They are distracting at times, and I think what I liked about the Capitol Wrestling Center versus the Thunderdome is that because you had fans on the floor level, excuse me, that raised the video, so you didn't have quite as many video screens on your, say, hard cam shot. And so it wasn't as distracting to me as those fans who are kind of in the, I guess, for lack of a better word, the front row of the Thunderdome, that they can get a little, it's grown on me to a point. I can't say I love the Thunderdome, although I think they're doing the best with what they can. It's not as distracting as it was at the beginning. I think I've gotten used to it a little bit more, but I liked that separation where it kept the video boards a little higher and allowed for that. And I like that they use them in different ways, like they do in the Thunderdome with the entrances, for instance, or Toni Storm's return, which I think we should get to here in a minute about the returns in the women's division. But Toni Storm's return, where it wasn't on the Tron above the entryway, it was on the Tron, behind EO or whatever you want to say, across from the hard cam, which I thought was just a little different look, and it was kind of cool. You've got all those screens, so utilize them, which is cool. So I thought that was interesting. So it wasn't quite as distracting to me as I think Thunderdome can be. Although again, I've gotten more used to Thunderdome. I was not a huge fan of Thunderdome at the beginning. Again, I was giving kudos to them for trying something and doing something different in a time when they, they're shooting from the hip. It's the whole they're building the plane while we're flying it kind of thing. So I, have to give grace to anybody who's trying to run wrestling or anything right now to figure out how best to do that. So I liked the Capital Wrestling. I like that it's a little darker too, because NXT should have that edge to it, I think. And doing it more Ring of Honor style, like you said, would have given them that as well. And maybe, like you said, if they just use those screens for more graphics and not fans, that could have been interesting too with the live fans. And I think you are right. I think it was kind of family and friends of talent who were invited to come to the Capital Wrestling Center. So I think it's not. There are still some trainees and students who are out there too. But yeah. So I think that does add to it as they go along. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. It'll be interesting to see what WWE does. It sounds like Thunderdome, they're going to stay there at least another month through November. I read that earlier this week because originally, Thunderdome was going to end at the end of this month, was when the lease was done with the Amway Center. They're going to stay through November because let's be honest, it's not like the Amway Center is going to be doing anything else. So they might as well take the revenue they can get from WWE, even though the state of Florida, maybe here's an aside. So the state of Florida has opened up, the governor has said that outdoor sports stadiums, so not the Amway Center, outdoor sports stadiums can fill to 100% if they want. Slight political comment. He's an idiot. Kudos to the sports leagues and to AEW, since they do have an outdoor venue. Kudos to all of them for saying, no, we're going to follow, what the health department is suggesting still, which is more in that kind of 10 to 15%. Socially distanced, wearing masks, all of those kinds of things. The Florida head football coach earlier in the week, last weekend, said he wanted to have 90,000 people in this stadium for their game against LSU this Saturday, which got canceled because there's 19 people on the Florida football team that now have COVID. But anyways, maybe that's a bad idea. So kudos to AEW on the wrestling side and others for not doing that. And kudos to WWE for trying to figure out a way to get some fans into an indoor setting. Indoor obviously is more of a risk than outdoor. So they've really got to keep that number small. But it's fun to hear real crowd noise. I don't mind the fake crowd noise as much, and I know they're enhancing it at the Capital Wrestling Center, and they're adding it in the Thunderdome. And I've seen some of our friends online who absolutely hate it, and other people. It does make it sound more natural to me. The NFL is doing it. Major League Baseball has done it. I think the soccer league, Major League Soccer, or whoever, and FIFA, whoever, I don't know a lot about soccer, so I'm showing my ignorance as I'm talking here, but have done it. What do you think about the enhanced crowd noise, Tom?
I haven't had a problem with it at all. It was interesting because I did watch the Seattle-Minnesota Sunday Night Football game a couple nights ago, and the announcers could not stop talking about what would this be like for both teams if the 12th man was here. And as much as I have talked here about, I am a Lions fan and I'm not yet jumping off that bandwagon, even though I feel like I'm always on the ledge every Sunday. And then usually the days that follow as I deal with the fallout, I do really enjoy Seattle. I'm a huge Russell Wilson fan, just love his character, love his ability. And side note on football, again, he demonstrated again on Monday why with less than 2 minutes, you want the ball in that guy's hands because he's a flipping playmaker, and it was fantastic. So yeah, so my Seattle fandom aside, yeah, it was interesting because they didn't pipe in crowd noise, I believe, on Sunday night, and there was no
Okay.
additional. And I don't know why, because you would think like that's your home field. Don't you want a home field advantage? But maybe the teams have to agree to mutually to it in a mutual way beforehand. I don't know. That's obviously it's different from wrestling. So sorry to pivot there. I don't have a problem with it in the Thunderdome or in Capital Wrestling Center when as long as it's adding to the product and not like being a complete and utter distraction. And
Right.
and it hasn't yet been that for me at all. So
And I don't know whether it's piped in live in the venue or if it's just on the broadcast. I don't know how that works
sure.
for either football or wrestling. And my thought, I agree with you. I saw a little bit of the Sunday night game, not to talk football. But my thought when they kept bringing that up was stop talking about it. Like, don't draw attention to the fact, because I think some places have done a really good job, and the NFL, frankly, has, of shooting the game in a way that they're not always showing you the empty stands. Um, they've gotten really creative in that, and I think WWE has tried that too. Of course, WWE cuts camera, angles every 4 seconds to a new camera angle, which is a little distracting sometimes. So it's a little harder to do there. But they're also not doing it in big open. The Thunderdome has helped them not have to show empty seats and that sort of thing. I think back to, and again, this is them learning along the way. I think back to that first SmackDown that was supposed to be up in your neck of the woods, up in Detroit, that got canceled, and they did it at the Performance Center, and they actually had empty chairs set out, like people were supposed to sit there. Don't do that. Like that's that. And Bailey cut a promo to the crowd and kept trying to get the crowd to respond. It was clear we just didn't know how to do that yet. Capital Wrestling Center. Um, Kudos to them. Part of their move was because they want to bring some fans back in, whether by invitation or however, and Full Sail isn't doing that yet. So that was part of their move, which I get it. You want to do business your way, then you own the building, so they can do whatever they want at the Capital Wrestling Center. I like the throwback to calling it Capital Wrestling Center, since Capital Wrestling was the original name of the company that now became Titan Sports and now WWE Entertainment. So that's a nice little. I love those little nostalgic throwbacks sometimes. So that was fun, rather than calling it the Performance Center, or rather than calling it the WWE Arena, or something like that. They could call it the Bingo Hall in Florida or something. I don't know, but to get back those ECW arena days. But anyways, other matches that I think we might have hit. Let's talk about that. The return.
Yeah,
let's talk about the returns. So Toni Storm comes up on the screen first, and announces it's Toni time, and that she is coming to NXT proper, and not the UK. She may appear in the UK from time to time, although my guess is going back and forth between the UK right now is not the easiest thing to do. So Toni is back in NXT, and I believe was supposed to have her first match on last night's show. Haven't seen anything from last night yet, as we mentioned. So, but good to see Toni back. And then Ember Moon revealed as that. We never really got a chance to talk about the mystery person, because I think that kind of started at about the point that you and I haven't recorded since. That person who was in the kind of green screened mystery video game-esque videos that we knew was a former NXT champion from those videos. So there was a lot of people thinking Bo Dallas, because Robert Roode had come back before that on Raw, so we knew it wasn't him coming back to NXT. A lot of people thought Bo Dallas. I got to admit, Ember Moon, way better than Bo Dallas. So I was excited. I think both of those women, the only thing for me is I think the NXT women's division is so stacked, as it is, and the Raw and SmackDown women's divisions are not. And they could use some depth. So I think both Toni Storm and Ember Moon might have been better served had they gone to the main roster, if they would have been used well. And therein lies the problem. Ember Moon wasn't used terribly well the first time she was on the main roster, and then she got hurt and has been out for over a year now. Toni hasn't had that shot yet, so I don't know what they would have done there. But Toni Storm and Ember Moon are both awesome as far as I'm concerned. So they are welcome additions. There we go, to any women's division, as far as I'm concerned. So I was excited to see them. What were you thinking, Tom, about Toni and Ember?
Yeah, I saw some feedback or read some feedback about having them both at the same time, it being almost like a competing interest, and it didn't land that way with me because they were different types of reveals. And I think if you take a step back and actually look at it in this direction, it really puts a spotlight on how coveted the NXT Women's title is. And then it's something that we also talked about too. I think, with Candice losing that night, you didn't necessarily have like a stacked list of contenders, but then you inject both of those ladies back into the mix, and then you do all of a sudden, even though they're not necessarily like, you know, a contender from their in-ring standpoint, their previous resume gives them that credence. So that was cool for me. I did not expect the Ember Moon reveal. I thought it was a male the entire time. I had no idea who. I hadn't like crunched the numbers and looked too deeply into whom it could be. But when it was revealed that it was as her, it was cool. And I liked the way that kind of happened, where the motorcycle pulled up outside the Capitol Wrestling Center and the walk-in happened and the helmet comes off and there she is. So yeah, again, not caught up on NXT from anything post takeover. So I'm eager to see how their returns develop on TV. Again, that pesky New Japan just keeps getting in the way, in a good way. That's where my energy's been going. So,
and we're going to talk about them here in a little bit too. And between the G1 and now they got the World Tag and Best of Super Juniors coming as well. So they're not going to get out of your way anytime soon, I don't think, Tom. Depending on how you feel about the World Tag League and the Best of Super Juniors. I agree with you. I thought it was a male too. In fact, I audibly out loud to absolutely no one in my basement but me said it's a woman when they cut to that the motorcycle outside of, and then I think they cut to the motorcycle and then they cut back to Io, I think, standing in the ring. So I was like, okay, this is still a continuation. Like, we're not moving on to the next thing. And I said, like I said, to absolutely no one other than my action figures down here, it's a woman. And then still didn't click with me until that helmet came off. And the smile that Ember had on her face, I thought was pretty cool, because you could tell it genuinely meant something to her to be back. I happen to have watched, I didn't watch all of them by any means, but she was on a couple of episodes, I think, maybe more, of Backstage when FS1 had that show on, with CM Punk and Renee Young and Christian and those folks, the studio show that they did. I saw a few of those, and she was on at least one or two of them that I saw. And she had talked at that point about how she didn't know if she'd ever be back in the ring, that her injury had been, and the setbacks during it had been such, and she, was emotional about it. So she had been off my radar as far as somebody who might be returning anytime soon. So that one was cool. Toni was cool just in that, like, oh, we're getting somebody from the UK to come over. They've clearly seen something in Toni Storm in the past. So, I thought it was cool. And I agree with you. I think it did show how coveted that NXT women's title is. And it did. It helped build some future challengers, whether they're the very next challengers for her or not, which I think I saw a match advertised for last night's NXT to determine a contender. So it may not be, they probably shouldn't jump right into title matches. They probably should build them both a little bit before you get there. But maybe by the time that takeover comes here in early December, one of them or both of them could be ready. Maybe there's a triple threat. I wouldn't blow that early and give them both that shot. But
and the other thing to think of is, when we didn't talk about it at all, and it was also announced on this takeover, is Halloween Havoc is returning. NXT Halloween Havoc, which, again, I'm happy, I'm excited about that, but I don't want to pass judgment yet because I'm not caught up on what's happening, but it's happening the week of Halloween. It's happening on just NXT TV.
Right.
I mean, is this what we're going to get now? Are we going to get throwback WCW big brand, events, but they're in essence Clash of the Champions, like, because they're not takeovers? I don't know. What are your thoughts about Havoc, and if you are aware of matches that are announced for that? Because you would think that they would want to make it a bang up 2-hour event. Again, they did this with Great American Bash a couple months ago, and it was a 2-night, 2-week event. And again, there were things that were happening on Great American Bash that left something to be desired.
Yeah, and the Great American Bash to me was a direct, what do I want to say? Co-programming, not co-programming, but they were doing that because of Fyter Fest.
Yeah,
counter programming. Thank you. I knew I wasn't coming up there right. Counter programming to AEW was it Fyter Fest? I think Fyter Fest was the 2-week. This time, to my knowledge, AEW has not announced anything special for the 28th. In fact, they've done the last 2 weeks have been kind of specials with the Chris Jericho 30-year anniversary last week, and then this week here last night being the 1-year anniversary show, which kudos to AEW for getting that first year done. Heck of a first year. We're not going to talk a lot about AEW today just because we've got some other things to talk about and getting current on it. But and I think my assumption is that it seemed like they were building last night to be a pretty big show. So there's probably some important things that we may want to talk about next week from that show last night that we just don't know about this morning because neither of us have seen that. But it's interesting that Halloween Havoc is just kind of its standalone. It is, like you said, the week of Halloween, so that makes sense. It will be interesting to me also to see on the flip side of what I just said, does AEW counter program? Do they do something special on the 28th? Or do they just keep going and not worry really about it? You would think that the 28th is going to be a takeover style event. I thought it was interesting that they're having Shotzi Blackheart be the host for it, which is kind of fun. That character works for Halloween Havoc very much. So I think that's good. It'll be interesting to see where they build. As of last week, I don't believe they announced any matches for Halloween Havoc last week. You got to think, with it only being 2 weeks away, that last night's show, like I said, I think I saw that there was a contenders match for the women's title. It'll be interesting to see what does the main event become, because I don't know as of this point, and this I guess tells you a little bit of things from last week, but I don't know what Finn Balor's status is.
Yeah, he posted a picture, I think last night or yesterday, and he's still like he's swollen. His face is like he's not going to be ready. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I have to imagine he's not ready to get back in the ring in 2 weeks.
Right. I would think 2 weeks after surgery, on your face, you probably shouldn't get kicked in the face. Just thought. Again, neither of us are medical doctors. So, do they do anything with the title? Do they leave it on him for now? If he's going to be back early November, maybe they leave it on him and they do something else as maybe a contender match for the main event. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the main event becomes of Halloween Havoc. For
sure. And two points. And I know we want to try to transition to more talk, but we're kind of hunkering down in NXT, which is okay. I really think they probably in a different setting, and had they not had to remove the title from Karrion Kross after his win, it would have been a whole lot easier to do that here with Finn Balor, and I think they probably would have under normal circumstances. Different injuries, of course, but again, obviously having your title not being active, it's a challenge. And then the other part, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this: feelings and thoughts about Kyle O'Reilly as having them push him more as a single. I mean, he clearly you and I obviously know Kyle O'Reilly going back for many years, many promotions, New Japan as a single, as a tag, PWG, Evolve, Ring of Honor really more so as a tag. But we know the depth of what Kyle O'Reilly has in terms of talent, and he was really able to put that on display at TakeOver 31. Should they run with the ball or run with him with the ball? It appears that the Undisputed Era tag team is now Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish, so that pivot has been made. Where do you land?
Yeah, I love the idea of Kyle O'Reilly being one of the top baby faces on NXT, which seems to be okay. If we go back to TakeOver, Ridge Holland dumps Adam Cole after the match. Bobby and Roddy come out. along, and obviously Kyle, jumps out of the ring too. I think where that was headed, and you haven't seen NXT from last week, so I'm ruining something a little bit in saying where it was headed. But Ridge Holland gets hurt on that NXT show, and Ridge Holland will not be back for a long time. Frankly, it's a little bit Dak Prescott-ish. It's not good. Maybe not quite to the level of Dak, but Ridge gets hurt. Ridge is going to be out for quite a while. So sorry, blew that for you. But where I think that was headed, and where I think it still will probably go, they just are going to have to pivot and come up with a little bit different way of going. I think Bobby Fish and Roderick Strong hired Ridge Holland. I think the split is coming for Undisputed Era, and I think Cole and O'Reilly are going to be baby faces out of it, and I think Strong and Fish will be heels. I fear that Strong and Fish will get lost in the shuffle eventually once the breakup angle and fight and matches end. I think you could have built to a really interesting, maybe it's Bobby Fish, Roddy Strong, Ridge Holland versus Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and someone, maybe two someones, and you add another to the Fish side as well, for War Games, which you think might be coming at the next takeover. But again, maybe they got to pivot on that a little bit too now. I love the idea of Kyle O'Reilly. So my first time seeing Kyle O'Reilly was when he was on Dragon Gate USA versus Adam Cole. I think it might have even been a pre-show match that then Gabe put out on YouTube or something because it was so good. I'm a little bit foggy on that. But I knew nothing of either of those two guys. So it's just interesting now to see where both of those guys have come. Funny Kyle O'Reilly story for you. Dragon Gate USA ran Milwaukee a number of years ago. And it was a little bit of a poop show before because that was the show, if you remember it all, the ring didn't show up. And so they were going to run a show without a ring at one point that afternoon. Then they were able to get Skull Crusher Rashke Brown, his ring from his school they came running over. So they were like 2 hours late getting this show started. I'm standing outside. Daniel Bryan was on that show, or Bryan Danielson at that point. I believe it was right after he had returned and won the U.S. title. So it was his last shots with Dragon Gate USA. He worked Jon Moxley. Anyways, O'Reilly was on that show. And after the show, Bryan was going to be doing a signing and taking pictures. And my brother and I were there and wanted to get our picture with Danielson and get an autograph. And so we decided kind of halfway through the main event, we were going to get up, and the venue in Milwaukee has a lobby. It's kind of an old like movie theater almost. And it has a lobby out, and that's where the signing was going to happen. So we decided halfway or so, just before the end of the main event, when it was kind of obvious it was ending. I don't remember what the main event was, but it wasn't Bryan and Moxley. They were like before intermission, I think. So we decided we're going to go out and stand in the lobby so that we can be first in line, because I think I had to get back and do a youth event or something. So I knew I wasn't going to have time to stand for an hour in line. So we walk out in the lobby, and Kyle O'Reilly is sitting on a chair out in this lobby. And so I walk over to Kyle, shake his hand, tell him I really enjoyed his match tonight. And then I said, do you happen to know where the Bryan Danielson signing is going to be taking place out here? And Kyle got this look on his face like, you totally weren't coming over to talk to me at all. You only want to know where Danielson's going to be. And he said, no, I'm not really sure. He was very polite about it. Kind of a shy, unassuming guy. But so I don't know. I've always thought of that story with Kyle, that it was pretty funny that, here, I think Kyle was he was so brand new at that point that I think he was just thrilled somebody wanted to come over and say hello. And then, yeah, my real point was I want to know where did I need to stand in line to get Bryan Danielson's autograph and picture. But I have always been a fan of Kyle. I think I loved that Finn Balor talked about on the NXT before TakeOver. Talked about that he knew how good Kyle O'Reilly was and that he had followed Kyle O'Reilly. I thought that helped bring Kyle up a level. And then that match, if you watched that match and don't think Kyle O'Reilly can be a main event player, what were you watching? I don't know what match you saw. That was not Finn Balor carrying Kyle O'Reilly. That was Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor putting on a masterpiece together. because both guys are that good. So I love it. I hope that it continues. It seems like it will. I guess I don't. It's hard to tell right now. They're only a week removed, but I love it. I think both he and Adam Cole can be huge baby faces. In kind of that Shawn Michaels vein almost, especially Adam Cole, I think has the Shawn Michaels vibe. And Kyle's charisma has come a long way too since those very early days in Dragon Gate USA, where he didn't have a whole lot. But his in-ring stuff kind of carried him, which is great. He's developed a lot in that charisma side as well. Whether it's air guitaring his title belts or being the psychologist for Roderick Strong when he was scared of Dexter Lumis was a little cheesy for me. But sometimes you got to play with those things a little bit, and sometimes you also have to do what the writers tell you to do. So I don't know how much of that was Kyle and how much was writers, but yeah, I'm loving Kyle O'Reilly at the top of the card. I hope Kyle O'Reilly is a future NXT champion. I think he can carry that belt. I was sorry that he only got a week or so as the Ring of Honor World Champion because of the contract situation there. Had his big moment. It's at a final battle, I think, and won it, and then lost it at Wrestle Kingdom, if I remember right back to Adam Cole. Number of years back, because I think he should have had a run as Ring of Honor World Champion that wasn't, hung up by contract disputes. But we can say that about a lot of things in wrestling, unfortunately. That's part of the business. Other NXT thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, no, I was actually nothing on NXT. I was trying to look back. There was a singles match between Cole and O'Reilly on a dark match in 2009 at Dragon Gate USA. So I wasn't sure if that was what you were talking about. There was also an incredible four-way that I kind of really thought put them on the match. I think it was Cole, O'Reilly, Ricochet. I want to say Eric Cannon, but I couldn't pull it up.
Chuck Taylor.
Chuck Taylor. Okay.
Yep.
That was that. I think that one maybe more so than the singles, was like a fantastic, again, not that those guys weren't already making their names in other places, but again, it was a Gabe product and a Dragon Gate product and had all this buzz around it. So what a great way for those four guys, again, it was 11 years ago, 10 years ago now, when you look back and think, okay, hey, you saw a lot out of those four, and then you look where they are today. So
yep. I think that now that you say that, I think that four-way caused Gabe to put the dark match out on YouTube or something, because that was the first time I had seen the Panama Sunrise, and I just thought it was the coolest move I'd ever seen in the world. And the reason I remember Chuck Taylor is he's the one that took that Panama Sunrise. And I just thought, like I said, it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Now I've seen it 7,000 times. And it's still a cool move, although occasionally, like with Pat McAfee, the setup can be a little bit wonky for it if it's not done really well. Hey, I'm going to walk over here with my head down. I wonder what will happen. I got pile driven. Yeah, Cole and O'Reilly. I mean, for you and I, because we do watch a fair amount of indie wrestling, not probably as much now as we once did with Ring of Honor, and you can question with the Ring of Honor's indie wrestling too now. But it's fun to see those guys, and watch them over the course of their careers. I don't know about you, but when people like the first time Seth Rollins won the title, I don't know if it's the first time, but at WrestleMania, whatever number it was with the big play button out in California, when he crashed the Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar match, I felt a little pride almost for him when he won that title, because you and I had been watching Tyler Black in Ring of Honor for so many years. So to see somebody come from those levels and then win the world title at WrestleMania has always been fun for me. Drew McIntyre, same way this year, even in a really strange WrestleMania. Hey, that wasn't his fault. So, yeah, it's just fun to watch those things and think back to some of those matches that we got to see, which is pretty cool. Well, let's talk. I know we're a little short on time, but we still got a little bit of time here. Let's talk G1. We're not going to run over results and things because that would take us the rest of our time. But just some general thoughts on the G1, Tom. How you feeling? You have watched every match until the point that you are at. I am woefully behind in watching, but because I'm running our G1 Pick'em, I know results and know I've read stories and things like that. Probably I'm going to have to go back and cherry pick some matches that I know I need to see. But what are your overall thoughts so far on the G1, and how you feeling about? Remind us who you picked to win the blocks and how you're feeling about that too.
Sure. So I do have to disclose, I did finally make a compromise and didn't watch a match. I did fast forward a match to try to get through things quicker. Not that I didn't want to, but I was just like, I was feeling the pressure of wanting to be caught up. Um,
So I'm
and
curious, what match was that?
yeah, it was Tanahashi and Evil. So I was able to, I think I watched like the
I
last
was sure it
three.
was going to be a Yano or Yujiro match, so that's why I was wondering.
No, that's the ironic part about it, right? Like, so of all the matches to choose, like I picked the main event of the October 8th show to like try to move myself along quicker. And again, nothing against either of those two competitors. It's just the way it was and how I was feeling at the time. But you are correct. Beyond that, I have literally watched bell to bell every single match and intend to do it the rest of the way, even though I'm a little bit behind where we are in terms of um, the where things are today as we're recording versus where I've watched. My goal is, though, because the last 3 nights are going to have live U.S. commentary, to be ready to go, or as best I can be ready to go when those happen. And I'm planning to brew some strong coffee and have that tough conversation with the wife about getting up early and just saying, "Hey, I love you, but I'm gonna."
You're going to try to watch them actually live.
I am. Yeah. I mean, we have it starts on Friday,
Yep.
Saturday, Sunday. My kids have off of school. I have off of work. We don't have any real major events happening Saturday or Sunday this weekend. I've invested this much. Why not try to? And again, it may not materialize. Again, if there's been ever a trend that listeners or viewers or even yourself have heard me say on this podcast, I have great intentions, and the way that those actually materialize or don't, and oftentimes don't, get recapped here as we unpack them. I will say this: watching NXT Takeover Live, not to pivot back, but I just want to say, like, the fact that I like made that appointment viewing, I felt very rewarded in that, and very thankful that I made that happen. And I want that more out of wrestling. I don't know that I often make time like that, but I did. And my wife was like, "Wow, you actually sat for 2.5 hours straight and watched wrestling." And I said, "Yeah, and it was so worth it. It was awesome." She's like, "Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself." Now, if I can get away with that in the next couple of days, with it happening at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, we'll see.
See, here's the nice thing, though. If it happens at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you can watch the show, and by the time the kids are rolling out of bed, and even the wife is rolling out of bed, show's over, and you can go on with your day.
Fair, right? And I would intend to do that, and I could get through the day. But I think that there would be something about it, or the main event would happen, and then someone needs me to let the dog out or feed breakfast. I don't know. Like, my kids are capable of making their own breakfast, but when they're home and they don't have a day of school, they're like, "Aren't you making breakfast for us?"
Right. They somehow forget.
Yeah, exactly. So sorry for that pivot and that segue to go back around. My picks are Block A, Jay White; Block B, Sonata. And I will say this: I am really giddy about how Block A has really had a bottleneck of 4 guys at the top competing, and I don't know how that's going to bear itself out over the last couple of events because of where I'm at. And I was really close on picking those guys when I did my picks. The one guy that I didn't have was Will Ospreay, but I've really enjoyed his tournament run. I've really enjoyed every match he's had. I had Shingo in that spot. Someday, somehow, some way, the intent and the belief that I have for Shingo is going to materialize in New Japan. We just had to have that. Our fantasy wishes and hopes and dreams will someday bear themselves out. So
we need to get Ghetto on this podcast and ask him WTF with Shingo, man.
And that's the thing. Shingo's had a fantastic run. I think his tournament's been stellar. Like, every match, win or lose, I've loved it. That Okada match, one of the best matches I've seen this year. And actually my favorite match in the G1, maybe not the best match, but it's been my favorite match. And I love the ending. It was their first ever singles matchup. I love the way that it ended. Shingo did not tap out. He did not submit. He was put into submission by the money clip. And that right there, when they get the chance to face off again, that's going to be a factor. I just know it will, because New Japan honors and carries on the history of their competitors and their longevity or their lack of longevity, or just they tell stories over time, and things like that will come back. So that's Block A. Block B, I'm quite surprised that Naito has been kind of running away with it all, which is interesting because I don't know enough in whether that bears itself out in the end. I think there's a lot of room. I would say Block B is more competitive than Block A, even though there's a bottleneck in Block A, and tiebreakers are going to come into play there. I don't know enough about if a defending champion were to win the G1, like what does that mean then for Wrestle Kingdom? So that would be an interesting way to do it. Like, and one thought I would have is that, if Naito were to win the G1, does that mean like he faces someone that he lost to in the G1, and then the belt flips, and then the build then is him trying to get the title, but he's doing it because he has the briefcase? I don't know. I wonder if that's
what he gets to pick his opponent if he wins.
Okay, which that's okay too, and again, getting back into the G1 and watching as much as I've watched has allowed me to get back in kind of the rhythm that I felt like I was getting in during the New Japan Cup, and then again went about almost 6 to 8 weeks with no New Japan viewing. I'm hoping that this time when the G1 kind of wraps in the next couple of days, real time, whether I'm caught up in real time or not, or I'll be shortly behind that, if nothing else, that I don't lose sight of the opportunity to stay connected to what's happening and watching New Japan as it's happening, especially like you said with the tag league, which again, until they announce the teams, I'm not super like that's not where my energy would be. My energy definitely will be on the Best of Super Juniors. Love that tournament. Love that division. We've been missing guys like Hiromu, Takahashi, Takahashi, Taiji Ishimori, and hopefully they are able to again bring some other talents in to really make this a tournament on the same level, if not better, than what they've done here with the G1. So yeah, I said a lot. Hopefully I captured some of the thoughts there. Where are you at, and what are your thoughts? How has the tournament landed with you? And again, especially from the perspective of, again, you've done such a really masterful job of keeping the pick'ems current, and I think you've had to sacrifice probably a little bit to do that. So I thank you, even though I'm like still staying spoiler free as best I can. I do appreciate that when I'm checking in on the thread for all of the folks that are doing our pick'em, that you've just been so on top of that.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I'm woefully behind. I couldn't even tell you. I stopped watching the full shows at this point, just because I fell woefully behind, and have been cherry picking. Block A to me has definitely been the better block. I've just been more excited about those shows when I've been watching them. Block B has been fine. There's nothing wrong with Block B, but it kind of has played out how I thought it might originally. Although you and I both, when we kind of started talking through the preview of this a month or so ago, both said, Block B, well, it kind of got that feeling early on when the participants were announced. As you start looking through the matches, there's a lot of good stories happening in Block B as well. I had Jay White and Evil in the finals, and I'm still feeling okay about that. I have to be honest, halfway through or so the G1, if I had to re-pick, I think I would have gone your way. I think you are potentially onto something there with White and Sonata. We'll see if that plays out or not. But Sonata definitely seems to have a story going. He lost a couple early on. I think it was a couple of them. Definitely that first match, Diano, and then a couple more. And seems to have that story that they've told before with people of losing a couple early on and then kind of having to almost run the table. We talked about that here on the show. It seems like maybe that could be the story going on with Sonata. So I'll admit, if it is Jay White and Sonata, I like our Jay White pick even more because I just don't see Sonata as a Wrestle Kingdom title challenger. And maybe that's me. Maybe I should, because they're both LIJ members and all of that.
Did you happen to watch the Naito Sonata match at all, or did you skip?
That is one I need to go back because I think story wise, I want to see that.
Okay, so I thought it was a good match. One of the other stories being told is the amount of ring time that Tetsuya Naito is
Yes.
accruing throughout this, and the potential maybe wear that then it's having. Side note: one of the things that we talked about off air that is, for the case of how I think the level of enjoyment I've been able to experience with the G1, because I'm not watching it live and I'm a couple days or a day sometimes behind. They've done a really great job on getting English commentary up, number one, even better as the tournament's gone on than when they started. But I've had the benefit of listening and watching with English commentary, which has deepened my ability to engage with the product in a way that I've enjoyed it. I've watched it with Japanese commentary, and it's not been a problem, but it's a different level of connection that I have when you have Kevin Kelly and Rocky doing the commentary as opposed to not. So wanted to make that statement there. But the reason I posed the question was I saw someone who's pretty big into New Japan on Twitter make just a comment about like not feeling like that match between Sonata and Tetsuya Naito, like that it like landed in the end, or that it was really just like what maybe you would expect, and that they're maybe just not good opponents for one another. And I don't know that that's the case. And I would think, especially if you're looking to potentially have that be a Wrestle Kingdom main event, you're not going to go all out here. I think they went nearly 26, 27 minutes, maybe just a hair under that. And it wasn't like a bad match by any means. It told a story. So definitely go back. I would be interested to know how that lands with you when you do have the chance to see it, even if we don't talk about it here. But yeah, I thought too, as I've watched it play out and as Sonata has been accruing win and accruing points, I'm like, okay. I might, I may be onto something here. So
Yep.
one thing I am surprised by, and again, I'm not current, so this may still happen. The lack of a draw happening, where that could be like, instead of like head-to-head tiebreakers being or common opponents, having a draw occur where then 2 points aren't awarded, and 0 points aren't awarded but 1 point. I think that would have been an interesting piece, and maybe it still happens. So
yeah, no, you're right. That could be an interesting, and to see how it may affect things. So yeah, I'm hopeful, and again, you and I both have the same problem. Tomorrow, I think I should be able to see the show. I'm not getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. It's not happening. But I think I should be able to, throughout the day, watch a match here and there and get through the 5 tournament matches. I have not watched the Young Lions Cup, or the Young Lions matches. I caught a couple early on, and when I've been able to watch, I've wanted to focus more on the G1 matches, because my time is limited to watch those. So I've heard some of them have been pretty good. Gabriel Kidd, it sounds like, is having a little bit of a breakout perhaps in some of those matches. So good for him. Look forward to seeing more of him down the road when he's in matches that I can give my time to. So yeah, I'm hopeful. We'll see kind of what the weekend brings. I don't think we have major plans this weekend, outside of my work obligation that I have every Sunday. But yeah, we'll see where that goes. My hope is to watch those this weekend, even if I'm not fully caught up on catching matches that I want to see to lead up to it, because I know the results from doing the pick'ems. I am going to, this time though, where I've sacrificed that up till now, I'm going to try, at least unless I just realize by Monday or Tuesday that it's not going to happen. I'm going to try to not update the pick'ems until I have watched these 3 shows, so that at least I can see the culmination of the G1, since I have been doing all that scoring all along the way. So, and I assume that on Sunday we should learn, hopefully, maybe the teams for the World Tag League and the Super Juniors participants, because I'm eager to see as well if they're able to bring anybody over, kind of what they do. The New Japan Tag Division is a whole nother talk that we can have at some point, but it feels weaker than ever right now. And I fear that it's going to be a lot of kind of hodgepodge teams. The not Super Juniors, the Junior Tag League is that way too. When they have the Junior Tag title tournament here recently, It just felt like a lot of random pairings. So I think that division could use some help. I doubt they're going to be able to come over for a full month because they would have to probably do that. But it would be interesting to see the Good Brothers come over for the tag league. But I just don't know that we're going to get them like that. I don't know Impact's going to want them gone that long. So we just have a little bit of time left. So let's hit two more topics, kind of quick hits for us here. The Ring of Honor Pure Title Tournament has continued. We're both current on that as of now. Without going over all of the results, our first two semifinalists for the tournament have been determined, and they are no shock to you or I because we both have them in the finals. Jay Lethal and Jonathan Gresham. The other semifinalists will be determined: Tracy Williams versus Fred Yehi this weekend, which Yehi got that win over Silas Young. Interested to hear your thoughts on Yehi getting a debut win in Ring of Honor.
Yeah, I didn't have the chance to watch that match, but I did see the highlights. And I thought that it was, from what I did see, it looked competitive and it looked good. I think that was a smart move. I think Yehi and Tracy Williams, because of their history, just make a lot of sense in the second round. And you, I could almost argue that it could be a pick'em. I don't think it will be. I think it's destined for Tracy Williams to win. But at the same time, if this weekend comes and Fred Yehi does win, I won't have, my jaw won't be on the floor.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat as you. I think it was well done. I love that Tracy Williams talked about their history and talked about Catch Point in his little post match interview after that, after his win. So I'm looking forward to that one a lot this weekend. My local Sinclair station fell a week behind, and they finally caught up last week and just skipped a week. But they had replayed, I don't remember now, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they replayed the week before instead of playing the right one. So I had to wait until Monday when it was on the website to see. I think it might have been that Silas Young episode. Thankfully, FS1 also shows it on Friday nights, but they had missed it a couple of weeks because of, I think, Major League Baseball playoffs. So they're back on schedule now. So at least now I'm catching back up or able to see them as they happen without that 1 week having to wait till Monday. And on the other side, it's PJ Black versus Josh the Goods Woods. Woods winning the only match that went to a time limit draw in the first round. So the judge's decision was for Woods over Kenny King, which I thought was interesting. You and I both went back and forth on who we picked for that match. So Josh Woods against PJ Black to face Jonathan Gresham. If you ask me, it's for the chance to lose to Jonathan Gresham. There's a better chance of Tracy Williams beating Jay Lethal if that goes the way we say, or even Fred Yehi, because if they really strap the rocket to him, there's a better chance of that happening to me than Gresham losing to either PJ Black or Josh Woods. I just don't see that. Also on Ring of Honor, though, last week we got our first taste of non-tournament storyline with the Follow the Trend video being revealed as Matt Taven returning to attack Vincent. I thought it was a great angle. I thought I don't need Matt Taven saying follow the trend all of the time, like he kept saying while he was doing it. But I thought it was a great, brutal, beat down and putting him through a table and all sorts of things. Taven and Vincent's got some legs to it, I think. So I like the Vincent character. I realize he's probably never going to be Finn Balor or Kyle O'Reilly in the ring. But I like that kind of dark and brooding character who just is kind of messes with people's mind. So I like the return for Taven. Did you? What did you think about that?
Yeah, I liked it as well. Again, I'm going to need a little bit more understanding of what this whole follow the trend thing is and why. I just want some meat to the bone there. But I really liked that. I thought it was cool how he showed up in the ring after the video package and kind of caught Vincent off guard, and then the beatdown was just brutal. But that was good. I mean, it made sense. I mean, Vincent was the one that took him out and injured him. So this is the type of thing.
If you're coming home,
if you're coming back, this is the way to come back and get some comeuppance.
And we also saw that EC3 is coming to Ring of Honor, so I think it'll be interesting to see how that character. I've paid attention through reading about him in Impact, so it'll be interesting to see. I think he's going to do a similar kind of character. Again, a little more dark and brooding. But EC3 is somebody who WWE never figured out what to do with in either NXT or WWE, frankly. Impact, I think, used him best. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Ring of Honor positions him moving forward as well, and whether we see him actually in the arena during the Pure tournament in any way, shape, or form, or not. They are doing tapings this weekend. They're in the ROH bubble as we speak. So it'd be interesting to see now what we get as we move forward in Ring of Honor as well after the tournament happens and what they start fleshing out. Again, Roosh still not around because he can't get into the country. So interesting to see without a world champion what you do there too for a little bit. So
yeah, I'm interested after these tapings are done, which they did a great job on not letting anything slip out, or no one let anything go. I think these ones will begin airing the first weekend of November, if I'm not mistaken. I think the Pure title gets decided, for me, it airs on Saturday nights. So I think that on Halloween is when the Pure title will be decided, if I did my projections on how the tournament will play out correctly. So then the new shows that are being taped over the coming days will then start in November. And you would think that would lead to what we might get as a final battle. And then if they were to go back into the bubble, I don't know, in early December, and then tape final battle among other TV. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, I know that when they've run pay-per-views, I think at least in September, where Death Before Dishonor would have run, and then Best in the World in June, they were like compilations.
Yeah,
you would think that they would want to try as best they're able to do something brand new for Final Battle, but we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Do we want to hit Ali, or do we need to wrap it up, Tom?
Yeah, we can quickly talk about the Retribution reveal. Yeah,
yep,
for sure.
Retribution. Oh, excuse me, clicked the wrong banner for those that are watching on YouTube. Retribution Ali, Mustafa Ali, is revealed as their leader. What'd you think?
Yeah, I liked how it played out. I actually caught up on this Raw just yesterday, before I digging into the draft episodes of SmackDown and Raw after that. I thought this actually played out really, really fun. It was interesting that just the involvement, like, it all made sense in the end. Like Ali challenging MVP and then having that match, and then the Hurt Business, and then they come out and they're like, "Oh, come on, join us!" And Ali's like, "Yes, for sure." And then they're all kind of, everyone's back is to each other, and Ali slips out and he's there on the floor, and then they're thinking, okay, he's sacrificing himself. We're gonna, and then nope. Yeah. So I liked how it played out. I don't know how it follows up on Raw from this past week, and if we get more than just a soundbite from Ali and some depth as to why and how. I'm looking at your face, and I'm guessing that's not the case. But again, it's that'd be very Retribution-esque at this point in the game.
They don't appear.
Okay, I heard they got. I saw a graphic that they got drafted to Raw.
Yes,
which was interesting in my mind, because they want to tear down WWE. So why would you draft them?
Yeah, right. No, I agree. Them being drafted was dumb. Yeah, they don't. MVP. This is a little bit of a spoiler for you, but MVP makes a slight comment in a backstage thing about, and Retribution and Ali aren't even here tonight, and then that's about all they talk about them, other than when they're drafted. Mustafa Ali. I shouldn't just keep calling him Ali because they have given him his first name back. Mustafa Ali did tweet something about, "I'll talk when I want to talk." You have to wait to hear my reasons or something, which I thought, again, good way to make, chicken salad out of chicken stuff. Because I don't think that was originally the plan. I think with the draft, they just didn't have time for this main angle that you're running. Why they keep doing that? It wasn't a Sunday. They have Sundays off, not Mondays, guys. Get it right. But no, I really liked how this played out. I really liked too the ending where he kind of held his hand out and then closed his fist and the lights went out. The timing was just a hair off on that, but it kind of had to be, because you have to see that his hand closes and then the lights go out. In the future, I think they could even do it as his hand closes, the lights go out. You could probably nail that timing. But I thought that was kind of a cool little effect. it was actually, I think, the best thing Retribution has done thus far, which not a high bar to hit, let's be honest, but I think it was the best thing, and I agree with you. You know what, we're going to finally feature Mustafa Ali in some way. Good, because the guy is good in the ring, very, very good in the ring. Let's see what he's got character-wise. I don't think we've ever really gotten to flesh that out. So let's see what he can do. I think it's interesting, and please let him keep the name Mustafa Ali. Don't give him a stupid name now, especially because we know he's Mustafa Ali. I guess we're not supposed to know who these other guys are because we're all stupid.
Mayhem Ali. It's Mayhem.
Yeah, right, Mayhem or something. Right, exactly. So let's pray that we keep him as Mustafa Ali and let him run with us. Let's see. Maybe they can pull the nose up on this thing yet. They're trying something at least. So I got to give them that. I don't think this was always the plan. I think this was a pivot. And kudos. Let's see what happens.
I know we're short too, but I just want to just connect on this. So there was that SmackDown watcher, like in the springtime, and if you looked at that and you made inferences, you could have maybe said that was Mustafa Ali, and maybe it was or wasn't at one time or another. And that was kind of exposing things. Like there was like a women's thing that got exposed, and like I forget who now. It was months ago, so it wasn't obviously that memorable. But I do remember that happened. If that was kind of what gave birth to Retribution, because I could see like that being like the beginnings, like if they're watching right now. So they've been watching for a while. Now they want to take action, and the action is this Retribution reveal. Obviously, they're not connecting the dots for us that it was Ali there. Like that thing just completely dropped. It fell off the map. Right. But for us that are being a little bit more in tune to the product, if we're attempting to make chicken salad out of chicken stuff, that does at least give me, from a viewing standpoint, a little bit of going, I can see maybe, whether they tell me that or not, or whether I have to like make that opinion up on my own, or make that judgment on my own. There is some connectivity there, I think. I don't know. Am I trying to justify a bad product?
Maybe, but but I've had that same thought, and I think that I do not think that was ever the plan with the hacker or whatever it was, the watcher, the hacker. I think somebody in creative ought to go, hey, what if, and make that seem like they did a long-term storyline planning, because I don't think it's that hard to make that connection. Especially now, and maybe they will with Mustafa Ali, because that was the rumor of the hacker. Of course, then there were two hackers at one point, but you could always say the other one was T-Bar or Slapjack or Slapface or Casey Jones or whoever.
Slapface.
Slapface, yeah, I don't know. Whatever these names
Monkeys Live, brought to you by Slapface.
Right, exactly. Glass Joe or Piston Honda or whoever the heck these guys are. But I think you could make that connection. So I think they should, but we'll see if they actually do. I agree with you. I think it would make sense, which, let's be honest, probably means that's why they won't do it. So, all right. Well, Tom and I both, I know, have to hop off onto meetings and other things with our day. So we have been thrilled to be back with you here on Two Spot Monkeys. We'll try to get back into a regular rhythm, but, hey, thank you for understanding, guys. Life just sometimes jumps in the way. So we'll be with you as often as we can.
I think we're positively looking at next week without a doubt. Hopefully some good G1 recap if we're both where we hope to be. And then of course the dominance is going to continue. We got Hell in a Cell pick'ems. Here I come.
We do, and I'm going to see if I can throw you off the top of the cell, but we'll see how that works out. Most likely I'm going to fall off it while I try. So everybody stay safe. It seems like things are getting crazier by the minute out there in the world. So if we've been able to give you, an hour and 20 minutes of shutting the brain down and thinking about something fun and not thinking about other stuff in the world, boy, that's something we enjoy doing. So take care, guys. Be safe and wear a mask, all those kinds of things. And we'll be back with you next week here on Two Spot Monkeys Live.